The alarm systems across the Imperial border station screamed into the silence of space. Commander Vexithar lifted his scaled head from the navigation console, his three eyes focusing on the display that showed something impossible. A vessel moved through the Outer Rim territories, and it matched nothing in the database. Nothing at all. In his 40 years of service to the Galactic Empire, Vexithar had encountered thousands of species. He had seen ships powered by solar sails, quantum drives, and even biological propulsion systems grown from living tissue. Every single one existed in the records. The Empire's database contained information on 12,000 intelligent species, their technologies, their cultures, their histories. The database was complete. It had to be complete. That was the foundation of Imperial power. But this ship was different. The sensors showed energy readings that made no sense. The hull reflected scanning beams in patterns that shouldn't exist. The propulsion signature looked almost like a fusion reactor, but the efficiency numbers were wrong. Too high, impossibly high. Vexithar activated the communication channel to his fleet. All ships converge on coordinate 793 by 421. Unknown vessel detected. Approach with caution. 6 Imperial warships changed course, their massive hulls cutting through space like predators moving toward prey. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Empire didn't survive for 800 years by being careless with unidentified contacts. The unknown vessel didn't run. That was the first surprise. Most ships, when surrounded by an Imperial battle group, either fled immediately or surrendered. This one just stopped and waited. It hung in space like a patient observer, its strange engines going quiet as the Imperial ships formed a circle around it. Vexithar studied the vessel through his view screen. It was smaller than his flagship, maybe 200 meters long, with a design that seemed almost primitive at first glance. But the more he looked, the more he noticed details that bothered him. The hull plating was arranged in overlapping layers that suggested advanced metallurgy. Small ports along the sides could be sensor arrays or weapons. The ship looked functional, practical, built for a purpose rather than for show. "Commander, the vessel is broadcasting," his communication officer reported. The officer was a young Quarian, barely 20 cycles old, and his voice carried uncertainty. "But it's not using any known language protocol." "Show me," Vexithar ordered. The main screen displayed a series of mathematical sequences. Prime numbers followed by basic geometric patterns, then more complex equations. It was a first contact protocol. The kind of thing a species might use when meeting others for the very first time. But that made no sense. First contact protocols were historical curiosities, things from ancient times before the Empire unified the galaxy. "They're trying to establish communication from scratch," Vexithar said slowly. "They don't know our languages. They don't know our systems. They don't know anything about us." The implications settled over the bridge like cold water. An unknown species was remarkable enough. An unknown species that had never encountered the Empire before was something else entirely. It suggested they came from beyond the mapped territories, from the regions of space the Empire had marked as empty or too dangerous to explore. "Respond with the same protocol," Vexithar ordered. "Let's see if we can build a basic dialogue." For 3 days, the Imperial fleet and the unknown vessel exchanged mathematical concepts, building a foundation for communication. The vessel's crew proved remarkably quick at learning. They grasped binary systems immediately, moved to more complex number theory, and then began sharing basic physical constants: mass, energy, distance, time, the building blocks of mutual understanding. On the 3rd day, they achieved breakthrough. The translation computers, fed with enough data, began converting the alien symbols into something the Empire could understand. The first message came through garbled but readable. "We are humans from planet Earth. We come in peace. We seek knowledge and friendship." Vexithar read the message 3 times. Humans. Earth. Neither word existed in the database. He ran a search through every archive, every historical record, every exploration log. Nothing. The Empire had no record of humans or Earth or anything related to them. He sent an immediate report to the capital world, Centralis Prime, where the High Chancellor and the Imperial Senate governed billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The message was marked with the highest priority code, one that hadn't been used in living memory. Unrecorded species detected. While he waited for orders, Vexithar continued the dialogue with the human vessel. He learned that it was called the Wanderer, a name that suggested exploration and curiosity. It carried 42 crew members on a mission to map unknown space. They had traveled for 6 months from their home system, moving slowly and carefully through the dark regions between stars. The captain of the Wanderer was a man named Jake Morrison. His image appeared on the view screen once visual communication was established. He looked strange to Vexthar's eyes, bipedal like many species but with unusual features. Only 2 eyes positioned forward in a way that suggested predator ancestry. Hair growing from the top of his head in brown strands, skin that was pale pink, neither scaled nor furred, clothes that looked functional rather than ceremonial. Jake Morrison smiled, showing flat teeth, and raised one hand in what seemed to be a peaceful gesture. "Commander Vexthar, thank you for your patience with us. I know this must be confusing. We didn't expect to encounter such a large civilization out here." "You didn't know about the Empire?" Vexthar asked, his translator converting his clicking speech into sounds the human could understand. "We had no idea anyone was out here," Jake admitted. "Our sensors detected unusual energy patterns, so we came to investigate. Finding an interstellar civilization is beyond our best hopes." This bothered Vexthar more than he wanted to admit. The Empire's territory covered a quarter of the galaxy. How could an intelligent species develop space travel without ever detecting Imperial communication networks, trade routes, or even the simple radiation from billions of inhabited worlds? He asked Jake this question, and the human's response was troubling. "We come from a region your people might not have explored yet. Our charts call it the Perseus Arm, out in what looks like empty space from here. Our homeworld is tucked away in a relatively quiet sector. We didn't detect any artificial signals until we pushed our exploration this far out. The Perseus Arm." Vexthar pulled up star charts and felt his blood chill. The humans came from the region the Empire called the Dark Expanse. It was marked in red on every navigation map, labeled as dangerous and resource poor. The official policy was to avoid it entirely. Too many gravitational anomalies, too much radiation, too little reward for the risk. But if humans had evolved there, had built a civilization there, had developed space travel there, then the Empire's understanding of the Dark Expanse was completely wrong. And if the Empire was wrong about one region of space, what else might they be wrong about? Orders finally arrived from Centralis Prime. They were signed by High Chancellor Zephyron himself, the supreme leader of the Galactic Empire. The message was brief and direct. Escort the human vessel to the capital. Full diplomatic protocols. No hostility unless attacked first. The Senate wants answers. Vexthar acknowledged the orders and opened a channel to the Wanderer. "Captain Morrison, I have been instructed to invite you and your crew to Centralis Prime, the capital of the Galactic Empire. You would be honored guests. We have much to discuss." Jake Morrison's face showed surprise, then something that might have been excitement. "We'd be honored, Commander. This is exactly the kind of opportunity we hoped for when we left Earth. A chance to meet other intelligent life and learn from each other." The journey to Centralis Prime took 10 days. The Wanderer traveled alongside Vexthar's fleet, maintaining position with remarkable precision. During the journey, Vexthar observed the human ship carefully. He noticed small details that troubled him. The way it maneuvered suggested thruster technology more advanced than Imperial standard. The hull showed no signs of micrometeorite damage, suggesting either incredibly durable materials or some kind of defensive field. The energy readings remained constant, indicating a power source with impressive stability. He also observed the humans themselves through communication channels. They seemed friendly, curious, and surprisingly relaxed for a species that had just encountered an interstellar empire. They asked questions about everything. What species lived in the Empire? How was society organized? What was the capital like? How did faster-than-light travel work? What kinds of art and culture existed? Jake Morrison seemed particularly interested in peaceful cooperation. He talked about humanity's hopes for joining a galactic community, about sharing knowledge and resources, about learning from more advanced civilizations. He spoke like someone who genuinely believed in the possibility of friendship between species. But Vexthar noticed other things too. The way the human crew maintained strict watch rotations, the fact that their ship's weapon systems, primitive as they might be, remained powered at all times. Centralis Prime filled the view screen of the Wanderer, and Lisa Grant let out a low whistle. She had piloted ships for 12 years, explored asteroid fields and gas giants, but nothing prepared her for this. The planet below gleamed with cities that covered entire continents. Orbital structures ringed it like jewelry, each one massive enough to house millions of beings. Ships moved in carefully controlled patterns, thousands of them representing hundreds of different designs and species. Jake stood beside her, arms crossed, studying the scene with careful attention. "Makes Earth look like a frontier settlement," he said quietly. "That's because we are a frontier settlement," Danny Cole replied from the engineering station. He was running scans on everything, his fingers dancing across controls as data streamed past. "Boss, the energy readings from just this one planet exceed our entire solar system's output, and I'm detecting at least 50 different power generation methods. These people have been doing this for a very long time." Amy Brooks looked up from her science console, her eyes bright with excitement. "The database they've been sharing with us mentions 800 years of unified government. 800 years. That's longer than most of human recorded history." Kevin Walsh, their linguist, was still working on translation protocols. He had barely slept in the 10 days since they left the border, too fascinated by the challenge of understanding alien languages. "I've identified at least 200 distinct species in their communication networks. Each one has unique linguistic structures. Some communicate through sound, others through color changes, a few through chemical signals. This empire is more diverse than anything we imagined." Jake listened to his crew, feeling both excitement and concern. They had left Earth hoping to find other intelligent life. They had found it in abundance beyond their wildest dreams. But they had also found something else. Power. The kind of organized, concentrated power that could crush humanity without effort if it chose to. A communication came through from Vexthar's flagship. "Captain Morrison, you are cleared to land at the primary diplomatic facility. Please follow the guidance beacons. A delegation will meet you on the surface." The Wanderer descended through Centralis Prime's atmosphere, passing layers of traffic control and defense systems that made Earth's most advanced networks look primitive. The diplomatic facility turned out to be a complex larger than most cities back home, with landing pads designed for ships of every size and configuration. Jake selected 5 people to accompany him to the first meeting. Lisa, because her sharp instincts had saved them more than once. Danny, because if they needed technical understanding, he was the best. Amy, because her scientific knowledge was unmatched. Kevin, because communication was going to be crucial. And himself, because he was responsible for whatever happened next. The landing pad was crowded with beings from species they had never imagined. Tall ones, short ones, ones that walked on multiple legs, ones that seemed to float. Guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention, carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Cameras and recording devices pointed at the Wanderer from every angle. The Wanderer's hatch opened, and Jake stepped out onto an alien world for the first time. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth's. The air smelled strange, carrying scents he couldn't identify. The sun overhead was yellow like Earth's, but somehow different, casting light that made the colors around him seem more vivid. A figure approached, smaller than most of the others present. It had blue skin, forearms, and large eyes that seemed to shift through different colors. It wore simple robes and carried a translation device. "Captain Morrison," the figure said, its voice coming through the translator in smooth English. "I am Sorvan of the Krellian people. I have been assigned as your liaison during your time on Centralis Prime. It is my honor to welcome you to the heart of the Galactic Empire." Jake extended his hand, an Earth gesture of greeting, and was pleased when Sorvan took it with one of his 4 hands. "Thank you, Sorvan. We're honored to be here." Sorvan's eyes flickered with what might have been surprise. "You are remarkably calm for a species experiencing first contact with an interstellar civilization." "We've had 10 days to get used to the idea," Jake replied with a smile. "Besides, being nervous won't help anything. We're here to learn and make friends if possible." Sorvan led them through the diplomatic complex, and the humans absorbed everything with quiet intensity. The architecture was beautiful but practical, designed to accommodate hundreds of different species. The technology was so advanced it seemed almost invisible, embedded seamlessly into every surface. Other beings watched them pass, some with curiosity, others with what might have been suspicion or concern. "I must admit," Sorvan said as they walked, "I viewed this assignment as unfortunate at first. Dealing with an unrecorded species seemed like it would be difficult and possibly dangerous. But having reviewed your cultural database during the journey, I find humans fascinating. What did you learn about us? Amy asked, her scientific curiosity evident. Sorvan's colors shifted to something that might have indicated thoughtfulness. Your species is contradictory. You have a history filled with violence, warfare between your own people, destruction of your environment, yet you also show remarkable creativity, compassion, and an intense drive to explore and understand. You reached space travel while still divided into competing nations, which is almost unheard of. Most species unify completely before leaving their homeworld. We're still working on the unity thing, Lisa said dryly. Humans are good at cooperation when we need to be, but we're also stubborn and independent. Makes for interesting politics. They arrived at a large chamber where the initial diplomatic proceedings would take place. The room was enormous, designed to hold representatives from dozens of species simultaneously. Seating arrangements accommodated everything from beings who needed to remain underwater to those who preferred to hang from the ceiling. At the far end sat High Chancellor Zephron himself, a tall being with silver skin and presence that commanded immediate respect. Jake and his team were shown to seats at the center of the chamber, positioned so everyone could see them clearly. As more representatives filed in, Jake realized they were about to be examined like specimens under a microscope. The Empire wanted to understand what humanity was, and they were going to ask hard questions. The ceremony began with formal welcomes in dozens of languages. Kevin whispered translations to Jake, explaining the nuances of each greeting. Some were warm and welcoming. Others were more cautious. A few carried undertones of suspicion or even hostility. Finally, High Chancellor Zephron spoke, his voice deep and measured. Humans of Earth, you present us with a unique situation. In 800 years of unified government, the Empire has encountered many species. All of them were recorded in our databases before first contact. You are the first exception. This concerns us not because we doubt your peaceful intentions, but because it suggests gaps in our knowledge we did not know existed. We must understand how this is possible. Jake stood to respond, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. This moment would define humanity's relationship with the galactic community. He chose his words carefully. High Chancellor, honored representatives, we understand your concern. From our perspective, the situation is equally surprising. We come from a region of space you call the Dark Expanse. Our maps show it as the Perseus Arm. We developed our civilization in relative isolation, not because we chose to hide, but because our region of space appears to have limited contact with your territories. A representative from a species with insect-like features spoke up, its voice buzzing through translators. The Dark Expanse is marked as dangerous and resource-poor. Our exploration teams avoided it after preliminary surveys suggested it was not worth the risk. How did your species survive there? Amy stood to answer this question, her scientific expertise needed. Our homeworld, Earth, is located in what you might consider a challenging environment. High gravitational variance, extreme weather patterns, aggressive biological competitors. We evolved in conditions that required adaptability and innovation. Our region of space has similar challenges: gravitational anomalies, radiation fields, unstable stellar phenomena. But it also provided resources and pushed us to develop technologies specifically suited to those conditions. Another representative, this one reptilian with multiple heads, asked, "What is your technological level? Your ship appears primitive, yet our sensors detect systems we cannot fully explain." Danny fielded this one, standing with the confidence of someone who understood machines better than people. The Wanderer is designed for long-range exploration in hostile environments. It's built tough and simple, because complicated systems fail when you're 6 months from the nearest support. But yes, we have some tech that might be different from yours. We use fusion reactors with a containment method that evolved from our experience with planetary magnetic fields. We also use computer systems based on quantum principles, because conventional computing couldn't handle the calculations we needed for navigation in our region. A murmur ran through the chamber. The mention of quantum computing. The Imperial Science Council had facilities that made Earth's best laboratories look like children's playrooms. Dr. Helen Price stood in one such facility, surrounded by equipment she could barely comprehend, preparing to demonstrate human medical technology. Around her stood scientists from a dozen species, their various sensory organs focused intently on her every move. The lead Imperial physician, a being named Keltar with 6 legs and crystalline skin, spoke through the translator. Dr. Price, we have reviewed your preliminary data on human medicine. We find some of your claims difficult to believe. Your species has only been in space for less than a century, yet you describe regenerative techniques that rival our most advanced procedures. Helen smiled, unfazed by the skepticism. She had faced doubt her entire career, first as a woman in a male-dominated field on Earth, then as a researcher proposing radical approaches to medicine. I understand your concerns, but remember, we evolved on a planet that kept trying to kill us. Earth has diseases, parasites, predators, extreme environments, and countless other threats. Humans had to develop advanced medicine just to survive. Let me show you. She pulled out a small case containing what looked like a simple injector. Inside were medical nanobots, microscopic machines designed to repair tissue damage at the cellular level. This is standard equipment on all human ships. Watch. Helen made a small cut on her own arm, deep enough to draw blood. The watching scientists shifted, some making sounds of surprise or concern. Then she applied the injector to the wound. Within seconds, the bleeding stopped. Within a minute, the cut began to close. Within 5 minutes, only a faint line remained. The nanobots identify damaged cells and stimulate natural repair processes, Helen explained as she worked. They also clean the wound, prevent infection, and break down once the job is done. We developed this technology because in space you can't always reach a hospital in time. Injuries need to be treated immediately. Kyle-Tar moved closer, its crystalline structure catching the light in rainbow patterns. May I scan you? Of course. The scanning took several minutes. When it finished, Kyle-Tar's color shifted to something that Helen's briefing material suggested indicated confusion or surprise. The nanobots are operating on principles we understand, but the precision is remarkable. The error rate appears to be less than 1 in a million operations. Our best medical nanites achieve 1 in 100,000. Another scientist, this one resembling a floating jellyfish, pulsed with light. How did you achieve such precision? The computational requirements should be immense. Quantum processors, Helen replied. Each nanobot has a tiny quantum core that allows it to process information and make decisions at incredible speeds. We needed this because human biology is complicated. Our bodies are full of different systems that all interact in complex ways. A simple programmed response isn't enough. The nanobots need to think. The room fell silent. Then Kyle-Tar spoke, its voice carrying weight. You are telling us that you have created artificial intelligence small enough to fit inside microscopic machines, and you use this routinely in medical procedures? Well, yes, Helen said, wondering if she had made a mistake. Is that unusual? Unusual? Kyle-Tar's color shifted again. Miniaturized artificial intelligence is something the Empire has been researching for 2 centuries. We have prototypes, but nothing reliable enough for routine use. You speak of it as if it is common technology. Helen realized she might have revealed more than intended, but there was no taking it back now. On Earth, we face different pressures than you do here. We don't have the luxury of slow, careful development across thousands of worlds. We had one planet, limited resources, and countless problems that needed solutions yesterday. So we innovate rapidly. Sometimes we fail, but sometimes we succeed in ways that surprise us. Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, Danny Cole was having a similar experience with Imperial engineers. They had asked for a demonstration of the Wanderer's propulsion system, and Danny was explaining the fusion containment method humans used. The problem with fusion is keeping the reaction stable, Danny said, sketching diagrams on a holographic display. Most methods use magnetic fields, and that works fine. But in our region of space, gravitational anomalies interfere with standard magnetic containment. So we had to develop a hybrid approach. An engineer from a species with metallic exoskeletons studied the diagrams. You are using gravitational lensing in combination with magnetic fields? That should be impossible. The power requirements would be massive. They would be if we powered the gravity lens externally, Danny agreed. But we don't. We use the fusion reaction itself to generate microgravitational effects. It's a feedback loop. The fusion provides power for the gravity lens, which contains the fusion, which provides more power. Once you get it started, it's self-sustaining. And this is how your ship operates? This is how most human ships operate, Danny clarified. The Wanderer is actually using an older model. Our newer ships have better efficiency. I could show you the designs if you're interested. The engineer's exoskeleton made a sound like scraping metal. Danny's cultural briefing suggested this indicated excitement or interest. You are suggesting that you have propulsion systems more advanced than what you brought here? Sure, Danny said. The Wanderer is built for reliability, not speed. It's an exploration vessel meant to operate for years without maintenance. Our military ships are faster. Our cargo ships are more efficient. Our passenger ships are more comfortable. We build different ships for different purposes. Another engineer, this one resembling a large bird, spoke up. We would very much like to see these designs. The Imperial fleet is always seeking improvements. Danny hesitated. Jake had told him to be open but not to reveal anything that might compromise Earth's security. Ship designs could be sensitive, but he also knew that building trust required some level of openness. I can show you the basic principles, Danny offered. The specific implementations might be proprietary, but the underlying physics is just physics. It works the same everywhere. Over the next hour, Danny walked them through human approaches to space travel. He explained how human ships were designed to handle high-stress environments, how they incorporated redundancy because help was often far away, how they balanced efficiency with durability. He talked about the mistakes humanity had made in early designs and how they had learned from disasters and near disasters. What Danny didn't realize was how radical some of these concepts were to Imperial thinking. The Empire had developed its technology gradually, building on established foundations, refining proven designs. They valued stability and predictability. Humans operating in isolation and facing hostile environments had been forced to try radical approaches. Some failed, but some worked in ways the Empire had never considered. In yet another section of the facility, Amy Brooks was discussing theoretical physics with Imperial scientists. They had questions about how humans had achieved faster-than-light travel, because the method the Wanderer used looked different from standard Imperial drives. We call it the skip drive, Amy explained. Instead of creating a stable warp bubble, we create a series of small rapid jumps through space-time. It's like skipping a stone across water instead of sailing through it. A scientist whose species communicated partially through color changes flickered through a pattern that suggested confusion. But that method should be unstable. The calculations required to chain multiple jumps together without cumulative errors should be beyond any reasonable computational capacity. Quantum computers, Amy replied. We can run multiple calculation streams simultaneously, checking for errors in real time. The system adjusts on the fly, correcting any deviation before it becomes significant, and this works reliably. The Wanderer traveled for 6 months using skip drive without any major problems, Amy said. It's not perfect and it's slower than we'd like, but it gets us where we need to go. We're working on improvements, but this is what we have now. The scientists exchanged looks, their various forms of communication creating a complex exchange Amy couldn't fully follow. Finally, one of them spoke. You are aware that quantum computing and faster-than-light travel are two of the most complex technologies in existence? Most species require centuries to develop them. You speak of them as if they are routine. Amy considered her response carefully. I think we might define routine differently. These technologies are cutting edge for us. We've only had reliable quantum computers for about 20 years. Skip drive has been in use for maybe 15, but once we figured out the basics, we built on them quickly. Humans are good at taking a concept and pushing it as far as it can go. Why? The question came from a scientist whose species looked almost plant-like. Why push so hard? Why not develop slowly and carefully? Because we didn't have time for slow development, Amy answered honestly. Earth is one planet with limited resources. Our region of space is dangerous. We needed solutions fast or we wouldn't survive to develop them slowly. Fear and necessity are powerful motivators. The plant-like scientist swayed, a motion that might have indicated understanding. So human innovation is driven by desperation? General Krathovan was a soldier who had served the Galactic Empire for 60 years. He had fought in 7 campaigns, suppressed 3 rebellions, and personally commanded fleets in battles that shaped Imperial policy. He did not scare easily, but the report on his desk made him deeply uneasy. The humans had been on Centralis Prime for 2 weeks, and every day brought new surprises. Their technology was inconsistent in ways that suggested either rapid development or careful concealment. Their behavior was friendly but guarded. Their questions revealed intelligence and curiosity that could be either helpful or dangerous. And most troubling of all, they came from a region of space the Empire had dismissed as worthless. If the Empire was wrong about the dark expanse, what else might they be wrong about? Krathven called a meeting of his senior officers, all of them veterans who understood the realities of power. They gathered in a secure chamber, away from the diplomatic niceties that constrained public discourse. "Speak freely," Krathven ordered. "What do you make of these humans?" Commander Velkris, a tactician with 300 battles to her name, spoke first. "They are careful. They answer questions but reveal little about military capabilities. Their ship carries weapons, but they claim they are only for defense. Their crew maintains watch rotations even here in the capital, which suggests a military mindset." Another officer, a veteran named Thaxalor, added his observations. "Their technology is troubling. They have achieved things we consider advanced, but they lack infrastructure we consider basic. This suggests either extremely rapid development or that they are showing us only what they want us to see." "Could they threaten the Empire?" Krathven asked directly. "One ship? No," Velkris replied. 100 ships unlikely. But if they have developed an industrial base in the dark expanse, if they have colonies and resources we know nothing about, if they have military technology we have not seen yet, then potentially yes, they could become a threat. Krathven nodded slowly. The Senate debates whether to offer them membership or alliance. Some representatives see them as valuable additions to the Empire, but I see a species that survived where we expected only death, a species that innovated where we saw no possibilities, a species that operates outside our understanding, and what we do not understand we cannot predict. What we cannot predict we cannot control. What do you propose? Thaxler asked. Containment, Krathven said. Not hostile, not aggressive, but firm. We establish clear boundaries. We monitor their activities. We ensure they do not expand beyond their current territory without Imperial oversight, and we prepare contingencies in case they prove to be threats. The officers murmured agreement. It was the practical, careful approach that had kept the Empire stable for centuries. Unknown variables were not eliminated, but they were managed, controlled, contained. But before Krathven could formalize his recommendations, an alarm cut through the meeting. A priority alert, the kind that rarely sounded in the heavily protected capital system. The tactical display activated, showing the border regions where the Wanderer had first been encountered. An Imperial border station had gone silent. Then another. Then a third. Something was attacking Imperial installations, and it was moving fast. Krathven and his officers rushed to the command center, where chaos ruled. Reports flooded in from the border region. Multiple stations under attack, ships destroyed, casualties mounting, and the attackers were using technology that matched no known species. High Chancellor Zephyron appeared on the command display, his face grave. "General Krathven, you are authorized to respond with full military force. Identify the attackers and neutralize the threat." "Yes, Chancellor," Krathven replied. Then, because he had to ask, "Should we consider the possibility that the humans are involved?" "That thought has occurred to the Senate," Zephyron admitted. "But their ship has been under observation since they arrived. They could not have launched this attack. However, the timing is suspicious. Investigate all possibilities." Krathven assembled a battle group, 12 of the Empire's most powerful warships, and prepared to jump to the border region. But before he left, he made one more decision. He sent a message to Captain Morrison. Jake received the summons in the middle of the night. When he arrived at the military command center, he found it filled with armed guards and tense officers. General Krathven stood at the center, his reptilian features set in hard lines. "Captain Morrison, I will be direct," Krathven said without preamble. "Imperial installations near where we first encountered you are under attack. The attackers are using unknown technology. This happens shortly after you arrive on Centralis Prime. Explain this coincidence." Jake felt ice in his stomach but kept his voice steady. "General, the Wanderer has been here the entire time under your observation. We haven't sent any signals, launched any ships, or done anything that could coordinate an attack. Whatever is happening out there, it's not us." "Perhaps," Krathven said, "but your ship will accompany my battle group. If you are innocent, you will help us. If you are not, you will be where we can watch you. Prepare to depart in 1 hour." Jake didn't argue. There was no point. He rushed back to the Wanderer and woke his crew. They had 1 hour to prepare for a military deployment into an active combat zone. "This is bad," Lisa said as she ran through pre-flight checks. If we go with them and things go wrong, we look guilty. If we refuse to go, we look guilty. We're trapped. We go, Jake decided. And we help if we can. It's the only way to prove we're not involved. The Wanderer launched alongside the Imperial battle group, 12 massive warships that made their exploration vessel look like a toy. They jumped to faster-than-light travel, and Jake used the time to review everything they knew about the border region. Something nagged at him. The attacks were concentrated near where they had first encountered the Imperial fleet. That area had shown unusual energy readings on their long-range sensors, readings they had been investigating when Vexthar's ships found them. At the time, Jake had assumed the readings came from Imperial technology. But what if they had been wrong? When they arrived at the border region, the scene was worse than Jake had imagined. 3 stations were destroyed, their debris spreading across space. 2 more stations were damaged and broadcasting distress signals. And moving among the wreckage were ships unlike anything Jake had seen before. They were sleek, dark, almost organic-looking. No obvious weapons or engines, just smooth surfaces that seemed to absorb light. And they moved with precision that suggested advanced AI control. Void Collective, breathed one of the Imperial officers over the communication channel. Impossible. They were eliminated 500 years ago. Danny pulled up information from the Imperial database they had been given access to. Void Collective. Machine intelligence that consumes matter and energy to reproduce. They were defeated in a massive campaign 5 centuries ago. All Void Collective units were destroyed, their programming erased, their infrastructure eliminated. Apparently not all of them, Lisa muttered, watching the enemy ships move with predatory efficiency. The Imperial battle group engaged, and Jake watched the tactics with a military eye he had developed through years of exploring dangerous space. The Imperial ships were powerful, their weapons devastating, but they fought with rigid formations, predictable patterns, by-the-book maneuvers that had probably worked for centuries. The Void Collective ships adapted. They learned from each engagement, shifting tactics, exploiting weaknesses. Within minutes, an Imperial cruiser took critical damage. A frigate was destroyed outright. The battle was turning into a slaughter. Captain Morrison, General Krathvin's voice came over the channel, tense and strained. Your vessel is to remain at safe distance. Do not engage. But Jake was studying the battle, his mind working through possibilities. The Void Collective ships were fast and smart, but they followed patterns. Patterns could be disrupted. And the Imperial fleet, for all its power, was fighting the way the Void Collective expected. General, with respect. You're fighting them wrong, Jake said. Explain, Krathvin snapped. They're learning from you. Every time you use a formation, they adapt. Every tactic you try, they counter. You need to be unpredictable. You need to break your own patterns. You are suggesting we abandon proven military doctrine? I'm suggesting you abandon predictability, Jake replied. They're machines. They think in probabilities and algorithms. You need to do things that don't make sense, things that violate their models. There was a long pause. Jake knew what Krathvin was thinking. Trust an unknown alien species with tactical advice or continue losing ships? The general was a practical man, and practical men made hard choices. Very well, Krathvin said. Coordinate with our tactical network. Show us what you mean. Jake's crew sprang into action. Lisa took the helm, her hands moving with the instinctive skill that made her one of the best pilots Earth had ever produced. Danny linked into the Imperial weapons network, his understanding of systems allowing him to interface despite the alien technology. Amy and Kevin worked on analysis, tracking Void Collective movements and predicting responses. And Jake coordinated, his voice calm as he issued suggestions that must have sounded insane to Imperial ears. The aftermath of the battle changed everything. News of the Void Collective's return sent shockwaves through the Empire, but so did news of how they had been defeated. Within days, every major news network was discussing the humans and their unconventional tactics. Some praised them as heroes. Others questioned whether such chaotic methods should be encouraged. All agreed that humanity had proven they were more than simple explorers stumbling into galactic civilization. Jake and his crew returned to Centralus Prime to find themselves treated differently. The guards who had watched them with suspicion now offered respectful nods. Scientists who had questioned their capabilities now sought consultations. Even ordinary citizens recognized them, offering thanks or simply curious stares. But Jake knew the real test was still coming. The Imperial Senate would meet to formally decide humanity's status within the galactic community, and that decision would determine Earth's future for generations. 3 days after the battle, Jake received a private summons from High Chancellor Zephyron. Not a command to appear before the Senate, but a personal invitation to speak in private. Jake went alone, leaving his crew behind, understanding that some conversations could only happen between leaders. The High Chancellor's private office was surprisingly modest for someone who governed trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Books and data crystals lined the walls. A simple desk held a terminal and a few personal items. Zephyron himself sat in a chair that looked comfortable rather than grand. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming," Zephyron said, gesturing to another chair. "Please sit. We should speak honestly, just two people trying to understand each other." Jake sat, feeling the weight of the moment. Whatever happened in this conversation would shape everything that followed. "I must confess something," Zephyron began. "When your ship was first detected, I feared what you represented. An unknown species, unrecorded in our databases, operating outside our understanding. For 800 years, the Empire has maintained order through superior knowledge and technology. We thought we knew everything there was to know about the galaxy. You proved us wrong, and that was frightening." "I understand," Jake said. "If Earth had achieved a galactic civilization and then encountered an unknown species, we would probably react the same way. But the battle changed my perspective," Zephyron continued. "Not because you helped us win, though that was significant, but because of what it revealed about humanity. You are not conquerors seeking territory. You are not warriors seeking glory. You are problem solvers seeking solutions. That is something far more valuable." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Zephyron stood and walked to the window, looking out over the vast city. "The Empire's old, Captain. Old civilizations become comfortable. We have our methods, our procedures, our established ways of doing things. These methods have worked for centuries, so we keep using them. But comfort breeds complacency. We stopped innovating because we thought we didn't need to." He turned back to Jake. "Your people haven't had that luxury. You developed in a hostile environment with limited resources. You couldn't afford complacency. You had to innovate or die, and that pressure created a culture of creativity that the Empire has lost." "You want us to teach the Empire how to innovate?" Jake said, understanding dawning. "Not teach exactly," Zephyron replied, "but perhaps remind us that there are always new ways to approach old problems. The Void Collective was defeated 500 years ago using overwhelming force and standard military doctrine. When they returned, we tried the same approach. It failed because we hadn't adapted, hadn't considered that the galaxy might change in ways we didn't anticipate. You showed us that different thinking can solve problems traditional methods cannot." "That's very philosophical," Jake said carefully. "But what does it mean practically? What happens to humanity now?" Zephyron returned to his seat, his expression serious. "That depends partly on what humanity wants. I can tell you what the Senate will offer, but first I need to understand your people better. Tell me honestly, Captain, what do humans want from the galaxy?" Jake thought about his answer. This was the question that mattered, and he needed to get it right. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people living their lives, working, loving, dreaming. He thought about humanity's history, all the wars and struggles, but also all the art and science and exploration. "We want to explore," Jake said finally. "We want to learn. We want to meet other intelligent species and understand them. We want to share what we know and gain what others can teach us. We want our children to grow up knowing they're part of something larger than one planet or one species. We want to be part of the galactic community, not as subjects or clients, but as equals contributing our own perspectives." "And militarily?" Zephyron asked. "What if the Empire asked for your help in conflicts?" "We would help defend against threats like the Void Collective," Jake replied. "We would protect innocent lives. But we wouldn't be mercenaries or enforcers. Humans have fought too many wars to be casual about violence. We know its cost. We would only fight for causes we believed in." Zephyron nodded slowly. "That is what I hoped you would say. The Senate will offer humanity formal recognition as an independent civilization with full rights within the galactic community. You will be granted territory in what we call the Dark Expanse, your home region. You will have access to imperial trade networks, scientific databases, and cultural exchanges. In return, you will agree to certain standards: respect for sentient life, environmental protections, peaceful resolution of disputes." "That sounds very generous," Jake said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "There are conditions," Zephyron admitted. The Empire would like to establish an embassy on Earth, with scientists and cultural observers. We want to understand humanity better, learn from you as you learn from us. We would also like to form a military advisory relationship, not command or control but consultation. Your tactical creativity could help modernize Imperial doctrine. And if we refuse the military relationship? Jake asked. Then we would be disappointed but still offer the other benefits, Zephron said. This is meant to be a partnership, not a demand. But I hope you understand that your performance in battle has made many in the Empire realize we need new perspectives. For too long, we have been comfortable with our superiority. You reminded us that superiority means nothing if you cannot adapt. Jake considered everything carefully. What Zephron offered was more than he had dared hope for. Recognition, territory, access to galactic civilization. The conditions were reasonable, even welcome. Human scientists would be thrilled to work with alien counterparts, and helping the Empire improve its military tactics could prevent future losses like those they had witnessed. I don't have authority to speak for all of humanity, Jake said, but I can tell you what I think. Earth would be honored to accept these terms. We want to be good neighbors and valuable allies. We'll share what we know and learn what you can teach us. And yes, we'll help with military consultation, because preventing unnecessary deaths is something we believe in. Then let us make it official, Zephron said, standing and extending his hand in the human gesture he had learned. Jake stood and took it, feeling the weight of history in that simple contact. But Zephron wasn't finished. There is one more thing I want to ask you, something personal rather than political. You said humans want their children to know they're part of something larger. Tell me about your children, Captain. Tell me about the human future you're hoping to build. Jake smiled, thinking of his daughter back on Earth, 8 years old and full of questions about the stars. I have a daughter named Sophie. Before I left, she asked me if there were other people out there among the stars. I told her I didn't know, but I was going to find out. When I get home, I get to tell her yes. There are thousands of species, billions of individuals all living and working together across the galaxy, and now humans get to be part of that story. What will she think? Zephron asked. She'll be excited, curious, probably a little scared, but mostly excited. That's the thing about humans. We know the universe is dangerous. We know there are threats and challenges we can't predict, but we're not afraid to face them. We're optimistic enough to believe we can handle whatever comes. Maybe that's naive, but it's also what makes us human. Zephron's expression was difficult to read, but Jake thought he saw something like approval. That optimism is valuable, Captain. The Empire has grown cautious over the centuries. We calculate risks and avoid uncertainty, but perhaps we have become too cautious. Perhaps we need some of humanity's willingness to take chances, to explore the unknown, to believe that challenges can be overcome. The formal Senate session took place the following day. The massive chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species, all curious about the humans who had defeated the Void Collective and impressed the High Chancellor. Jake brought his entire crew, all of them dressed in their best uniforms, ready to represent humanity before the galaxy. High Chancellor Zephron addressed the Senate, speaking of humanity's first contact, their technology, their culture, and their actions in battle. He recommended full recognition and partnership, citing both practical